And we'll thank George for this magnificent buffet that we've had. And it is my extreme pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Teresa Adlam. She is from the State's Attorney's Office, and I am going to read what she does because I can't memorize it. Teresa is a Victim Service Program Specialist with the Division of Victim Services and Criminal Justice Programs in the State's Attorney's Office. Teresa graduated from college with a criminal justice degree and also a minor in psychology. And then when she first was a new graduate, she thought she could save the world and she thought she could. She was an advocate. I'm going to just go over this very slowly here. She was an advocate for the Ninth Judicial Circuit State's Attorney's Office for sex crimes, domestic violence, and child abuse. She finally got a little lighter in 1999 and joined the State's Attorney's Office. She speaks all over, she teaches all over, she's been on ABC 2020, and she is going to teach us about how to protect ourselves and learn about our own personal information and about identity theft. And she may scare us a little bit, but it'll give us something to think about when we go home to figure out how we don't answer the phone at night when it rings and we don't recognize the phone number. Teresa Adlam, please give us her feedback.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for inviting me. I always tell people I will scare you, not on purpose, but I am at least the bearer of bad news with a smile. So I promise you'll have a lot of info today. I was the first ID theft advocate to the state of Florida in 2002, and I have not had a slow day yet. So I will tell you, unfortunately, Florida is high up in the rankings for identity theft and fraud, and unfortunately, it's also kind of meshed into our professional world of businesses. So today I'm going to talk about community and your personal identifiers, but I'm also going to tap into business identity theft in case those of you in the room have businesses or an LLC or something where your feet are kind of in the open public records of Florida, which unfortunately happens to be one of the outlets many of these thieves take advantage of. How many of you in the room have been a victim of ID theft? Please raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So maybe 9 or 10. All right, how many of you reported it to the police out of the 9 or 10? Raise your hand. 4 or 5. How many of the 9 or 10 actually reported it to the Federal Trade Commission? Raise your hand. Look around. 0. Florida is ranked number 1 in the nation for reported cases to the Federal Trade Commission last year for fraud. And Florida is ranked number 2 in the nation last year for reported cases of identity theft. Those individuals knew to call the Federal Trade Commission and report it. Out of this room, we had probably 9 and no one called. So think about where we truly would be within the nation and our rankings in the world of ID theft and fraud. Many people, this crime, sometimes we're told it's civil, and it's not civil, it's criminal. But a lot of times banking institutions or your doctor sends you this lovely letter that you've been a victim of a data breach. How many of us have gotten those letters, right? Unfortunately, half of the country has because of the credit bureau data breach that happened last year. So many of us aren't really truly sure where we belong. So the one thing I will tell you, your identity theft, when someone uses your personal information without your authorization to commit a crime, you have a right to a police report. You also have a right, and you should be calling the Federal Trade Commission and notifying them that this crime took place. Some of the problems that we've seen over the last 16 years with this is that I'm seeing technology evolve. And as we all see it, what do? We go to the gas station or we go to the grocery store, and what is everybody doing? What are we doing? We're not saying hello, right? People behind you, in front of you, in the lines at the gas station, you name it, we're all on our phones. So unfortunately, I've seen this evolve where this crime has taken off. Because many times we may work with people, we may trust people, but they're actually taking photos of our social security cards. They're taking pictures of our credit cards at the restaurants. We have individuals that are being paid off to take information and sell it. So unfortunately, the world of ID theft has definitely changed from when I started with dumpster diving. That was typically what we'd always say to people: shred your documents, look out for those dumpster divers, and now it's a whole different world. What are personal identifiers? Under the statute, we have a great law in Florida. It's statute 817.568. And when someone uses your personal identifier in conjunction or alone with something else and tries to gain money, then you have a crime. And when we've had this statute since 1999, and it has evolved and changed over those years. So these are just some of the things that we have listed under statute 817, which criminalizes the world of identity theft here in Florida. If you'd look at it, I like to notify people that it's not just the traditional credit cards. A lot of people go, oh, well, it was a credit card, my bank took care of it. Oh, it was my checking account, my bank took care of it. It's not really a crime. It is. And you should still obtain a police report, and you still should contact the Federal Trade Commission. So before the end of the presentation today, before you all leave, Alice is going to help me put some of these materials out in the front, and I want you all to take them with you. You'll be able to have the information on what the Florida law is. You'll have information on how to contact the Federal Trade Commission, and you'll have a better understanding of how to pull your free credit report and all these things that you should be doing already. Hopefully it prevents some identity theft from happening, but if you look at some of this stuff, you can't prevent it. That's the bad part of ID theft. We cannot prevent a deceased individual's information being used. What is the one thing that we do most when we love someone and we've lost someone? What do? An obituary, right? The bigger the better, because we want to show honor to that person. The problem with that is, and I will tell you from seeing the horrible crimes that occur and land on my desk, is we are putting out in front to internet searches, to the library. I have criminals that just sit at the library and look up obituaries on the public computer. They don't have to get the morning paper anymore, right? They can do everything from the internet. And they will specifically go to obituaries. And what do we put in there? How old the person was, how many children, how many grandchildren, the names, the ages, where you were born and raised, where the deceased worked their whole life, and that is my starting point to sit on that computer and do public record searches. In the state of Florida, those of you are probably familiar with the sunshine laws, so we're wide open, aren't we? We're wide open, but unfortunately the thieves are now using that as a way to pull our personal information. So deceased individuals, actually as of 2005, 2006, we included that in the statute. So now we don't have law enforcement saying, we don't have a case, we have a dead victim. No, when you have someone's estate frozen and on lockdown because they were taken advantage of either before they were dead or after, that's still a victim. We also have minor children involved because a lot of times children don't realize that they're victims of ID theft until they call me and say, I was just denied a student loan at UCF. I pulled my credit and there's a Corvette on there. Guess who had a Corvette when I was 5? My dad had a Corvette when I was 5. So we do see a lot of family identity theft that takes place as well, not just stranger type incidents or data breaches. We also have biometric data. So we have a great law. Medical records. How many of you go now and we have portals, right? Portals with passwords and more passwords just to get our blood work. Well, unfortunately, we're seeing the electronic side of medical histories merge. And sometimes they merge with the wrong person in the sense the bad guy goes to an emergency room to either obtain legitimate services or maybe a medication. They have a different blood type than you. You have an emergency, they rush you to the hospital, they pull your information up on the portal, and they may give you the wrong blood transfusion because the bad guy had a different blood type. So medical records and identity theft have slowly evolved, and we're seeing it more. It used to be collections only, and now we're actually seeing it alter your medical records. So we do ask you to please, if you have an opportunity yearly, if you can, put it on your to-do list. Check your medical records and your history if possible, because we are seeing a colliding of bad guy and the patient, the true identity of that person being mixed. Dissolved business entities. For those of you that have ever had a business registered in the state of Florida, please check SunBiz, and I will tell you, check it often. I deal with the complaints that come to the Attorney General's office out of Tallahassee, and when I get blind copied on these responses, I will tell you this last week, I've probably had half of the complaints have been business related. What happens is, for those of you that don't understand how wide open we are as a state, if you know of a business, or if you had a business at some point in time, you run a search in SunBiz. You run a search under your name or the business name. The bad guy is going in, acting as if they are you, paying $57 max to change it, and they're taking that good business name like that. Then they will slowly try and get business loans, credit cards, merchant numbers, and it is happening at a rapid pace. Unfortunately, Sunbiz is not set up to have a fraud unit. They're a data recording agency of the state of Florida. They are actually making victims pay to fix their business name. So we have a long ways to go, but we just included business entities a year and a half ago. Unfortunately, when you're ranked number 2 in the nation for identity theft, the top 50 cities in the nation, look at how many Florida has. We have 14 top cities of the 50 cities in the nation ranked here on the map. Orlando, Kissimmee, Sanford, we're number 7 out of 50 in the nation, and that's per capita, so you're looking at population size. But I like to show people this because look at Sebring's on there. For how many of you know Sebring? I'm from Winter Haven, Florida, so I know Polk County, small, Highway 27, Sebring, snowbirds, right? But we're listed number 48 out of the top 50 cities in the nation. So a lot of times there's no rhyme or reason to this form of identity theft or this form of crime. Sometimes it can be an organized ring that starts in Orlando and they work their way down south. Sometimes it's somebody in South Florida that works their way up and they hire people, from waiters and waitresses to have skimming devices in their pocket. And when you pay that nice waiter and get ready to leave them a tip, they walk away with your credit card, don't they? They also can swipe that skimming device that is this big, and they have just taken all of your information, and they're going to get paid tonight when they get home because someone's going to download your information on the internet. Credit card skimmers are huge. How many of you ever been skimmed at the gas pump? I was just a couple months ago. The one thing I will suggest to you, please don't use your debit card. If you are using your debit card at the gas pump, which I did, and I know better, but I had a rental car for work, and I only needed $5 to fill up the rental car to get back to work. Longwood Shell Station. Nice area. I lived right down the street. It was my local little spot to go. And $5.38 started pending, $28, $28, $28. And it actually came back showing that I was physically there swiping every hour. Well, until I proved to them that I worked for the Attorney General of Florida, downtown Orlando, and here's my rental car receipt showing at what time I returned that to, we are not going to continue this. I'm getting my money back, and they actually said they would do it as a courtesy, that they were not required to give it back because it's showing a physical swipe. I will tell you all that that is because it was probably a Bluetooth-based virus. Normally, a Bluetooth-based skimming device or a virus or whatever they're using, they never have to go back and pull the skimming device out of the gas pump. They are down the street or in the parking lot, further away than you will ever think, and they're pulling it directly from a cell phone. And they can immediately text it to anybody, anywhere. So it was showing that I was physically swiping, although I was not there. So again, no more debit cards. Try not to use debit cards, carry your cash inside, or use a credit card and fight with those credit card companies. Some of the top stolen personal identifying ways for Florida. These typically do not change. Credit card obviously is the first and foremost. How many of us have chips in our credit cards now? Guess what? False sense of security. You can buy scanning devices, and I can put it in my big mommy purse, and I can walk around and shake your hand and probably come about 4 inches from your wallet. And I just picked up every single chipped card and downloaded it into my mommy purse because I've got a scanning device. So chips are not bulletproof. The chips are even in our passports. So be very cautious about where your passports are at. They do say to get some of the little cards, the little safe protective aluminum type cards, those are fine, but do your research and know if those are truly have good reviews because not all of those are legitimate. And sometimes you're buying just plastic to put around a credit card. Employment tax related fraud is huge. Our office has typically been going into businesses and talking about this because of the data breaches and some of the things that we're seeing with our Social Security cards. If you have your Social Security card on you, take it out of that wallet, hide it in your house. Be like me, I never know where I put it. But I'd rather not know where I put it in the house than have someone steal it out of my wallet. Tax time, if you have ever filed taxes, anybody here out of the 9 tax return fraud? Anybody? Typically with tax return fraud, you go to file your taxes and you were informed by the IRS that someone filed on your behalf. So it is a first come, first served basis. So again, if you have the opportunity to lock your credit with a freeze and lock your PIN down with the IRS, which is free to have a PIN with the IRS, I would suggest doing so. Because again, as long as you have a social, people can file your taxes before you or after you. Bank fraud, that's a new account and existing. Phone and utilities, you wouldn't believe it, but there are many cases of phone and utility fraud. A lot of them are buying things and having them shipped all over, but they're actually setting up landlines. Landlines in your name. DirecTV is a big one for me. I get a lot of DirecTV complaints. People use your social, they've pulled your information, and they're able to either answer 1 or 2 security questions, and they're in. And they never pay their bill, and it comes to your collections. It comes to you eventually. Government documents fraud, we also see a lot of government document fraud. A lot of it is also because we're open record state. People can gain so much information about us. Unfortunately, I do have people that have worked so hard and they have lost so much. And a lot of it is also even through unemployment fraud, where they now lost their job. They're finally seeking some type of assistance and they have tapped out because someone else has used unemployment or someone else is working under their social. So again, the sky's the limit. Every day is different for me, and I see most of these on a weekly basis. Stolen identity refund fraud, we call that SURF. So for those of you that are in the industry of businesses, just please make sure that social security numbers are locked and safe, and if you are no longer working and you're retired, please be cautious who you're giving your social out to. Medicaid and Medicare numbers, obviously, and military IDs, we're trying to get away from always using a social, but what's the first thing your doctor wants to see, right? A Medicaid, Medicare insurance card, or your social security card. Question why. Many times they will tell you they cannot see you as a new patient without providing the information. And I understand that, but I'm still asking you all to question it because we're seeing identity theft run rampant, and a lot of times it's the start of one document that leads to another. If you are a victim of income tax return fraud, the IRS has their own specialized unit where we encourage you to call. This brochure right here is what I want you to make sure and take with you. This has all the information. This is the Attorney General's office where I work. This is our little ID theft brochure. So it has the statute, it has the IRS in there. You want to call them and they're going to have you complete a 14039 form. It's an affidavit. Your local police will not take a report because it's federal. So a lot of times people call me very upset that local police won't take it, but again, it's federal. Data breaches in Florida. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, every day there's more and more, and we are not going to know the true numbers because many of them do not tell us until they're required to by law. Part of the Attorney General's office, I don't work or handle data breaches. Our specialized team in Tampa does, but we do have a tight law now. It's under our Unfair and Deceptive Trade Practices law, and we will require sometimes forensics of their hard drive because we want to know, Florida businesses, if you had a data breach, how did it occur, why, and our office can actually find that business for not notifying you all that you had been a victim to a data breach. Small businesses, unfortunately, we're seeing with data breaches sometimes have to close shop. The average cost of a data breach is easy $36,000. We're seeing it more in the past the $50,000 range because how many of us are being offered 1 year of free monitoring? It's a little past the point of caring, right? Because you're like, well, I'm already a victim. My stuff's out there. But they're trying to continue to keep your customer and your appreciation to them of, please don't leave us. Here's a year's worth of free monitoring. Sometimes it will detect identity theft. But unfortunately, the reality is your social's out on the dark web. And your social can be bought and sold day in and day out once it's on the loose. So these are some of the things that we talk to about business professionals. If you're interested in more of this information, if you are running a business and you need a staff presentation, I would go out and do staff presentations. But we try to make people be held accountable in their business industry. Federal Trade Commission released this information and we just go and take it to businesses. We haven't recreated the wheel. Taking stock, knowing what you have as inventory. For those of you that work even in volunteering industries, we want to make sure that people aren't carrying their phones around and using these as a personal device, but where they can gain access to information and files. Making sure flash drives, like I brought today, I brought my flash drive, I brought my little stick for my clicker. But what if you're a volunteer and you're like, what a lovely person Teresa is. She comes in, she volunteers, she uses our laptop. What if I brought my flash drive in and you didn't know I just downloaded all the personal information of all your members? And then I sold it off to a marketing company. And then I sold it off because then I found out your socials and date of births were on that Excel spreadsheet. So again, I'll go to businesses and tell them just use basic common sense, just have it as a policy, don't allow it. Don't allow personal cell phones while working or volunteering. Don't allow flash drives. Don't allow downloading or streaming of personal information while working. We also say take the assets of what it is within your agency and making sure that you can locate them. Take inventory. Scaling down. If you don't need written records, don't keep them. Shred them. Hire a good shredding company. Locking things. I will tell you, we use this as an example at my office. We have a shredding company that comes, and so we put things in a locked big dumpster that's got a slat, got a little slit in it, and you drop it in. But how many offices will you walk around where people have under their desk or in the corner a big box that says shred because they're too lazy to walk to the bin? And then we have night cleaning crew. Luckily, our office, working for an elected official, and it's a locked unit, everyone has to go through a criminal background check before they can even take out our trash. So we went 2 weeks last week without having trash because the last maintenance person left. But think about a location that may not do background checks. How hard would it be for them to walk by at night and grab that box that says shredding and put it in their dump? They walk it out and they take it right to their car because you're shredding, obviously, important information. So you have to be cautious, not just digitally, but the non-digital side. If you have housekeepers, pool cleaners, people that come do your lawn and you give them access to your house, be cautious of what you have available in plain view. Because sometimes that is a key to where your identity was stolen. Destroying things, please go with a good shredding company, whether it be your home or a business. We always say don't go with the one that has the little magnet on the side of their car because we've gotten those calls where they go, this is really weird. I have a neighbor, and they have a business, and it says something about shredding, but we always see them unloading bags and bags into their garage. And I'm like, oh, that's probably not the best business, is it? Probably not the best business. They may be digging through that before they shred, or they may not be shredding at all. So be cautious with that. Know who you're working with. And planning ahead. This slide for me has changed completely over the last 2 years because under Attorney General Bondi, my boss, she has definitely, this is my 4th Attorney General I've worked for, and when Pulse nightclub shooting happened, it was all hands on deck. So that included me because I worked here in Orlando. So I worked day in and day out and I still actually am working with some of the Pulse victims, and then we were sent to Las Vegas to help with the shooting because she invited basically an open invitation of our people are here to help you, and they said yes. And then Parkland happened, and on Valentine's night, I was jumping in my car after working all day and working with that shooting. So what I try to say to people is when you're planning ahead, you need to think about the real plan because sometimes it's the most unbelievable plan you'll ever think of. And I used to always tell people your plan would be more tornadoes, hurricanes that happen in Florida because sometimes your locked cabinet has people's personal information. I've had calls where they say they're flying down the street. Who do I go pick it up? It's a model home. That model home held everyone's paperwork. It's a home that got hit in Collier County when we had big hurricanes. But now we're changing our incident and our security plans to involve things like horrible shootings. It's the reality of what we live in now. So be prepared, have a plan at home and in your workplace. This is what SunBiz looks like. I want you all to understand SunBiz, again, is wide opened. If you are a victim of business identity theft, that can be a business that you haven't opened you closed doors 10 years ago on. You are still in the database with SunBiz. Please do a search on your name or what your former business name was. Make sure that the information is the same. If not, as of 2016, you have a right to a police report. And again, a police report for ID theft is where you live or where any element of the crime took place. So sometimes that could be, well, somebody bought a handbag in Miami. Well, you live in Winter Park. You try to call Winter Park and they go, why are you calling us? The crime occurred in Miami. So what do? You call Miami. Miami says, why are you calling us? You live in Winter Park. That is the typical issue that most victims call our office with, and that's where my role will come into play. And I will help you get a police report. That's your right, and that's what the statute's there for. When it comes to Sunbiz, unfortunately, they are going to make you pay to fix it, but I want to see that you all at least make the initiative and file a police report to cover yourself, because I've actually had retired doctors and lawyers call me, and they're being sued for something they never did. They never did. And then it's gone on so long, statute of limitations have run, and now it's civil. So now this doctor who has called me, and this has been an ongoing thing for almost 2 years, haven't heard from him in a few months, he is heartbroken. All that he worked so hard for is gone in litigation due to fraud. Annual credit report. Hopefully you all here, how many of you raised your hand on pulling your annual credit report? Everybody's gonna raise their hand, right? No, I only have like 5. So from here on out, you have no excuses. Pull your annual credit report every year. It's free of charge. The only thing that they can try to charge you for is your credit score. Decline it. But under the federal guidelines, this is your right. And this also is going to be in this brochure for you. Different scams, as Alice mentioned, the good old grandparent scam where they'll call you late at night and tell you, oh, Grandma, you're not going to believe this. I got in a car accident, or it's going to be a issue where they're in jail. And I really just need you to send me some money. I'll explain it all tomorrow. Please don't do that. I have had so many people fall for this grandparent scam, and I will tell you, they'll say, you know, I didn't even think about it. I was half asleep. I just jumped. I thought, well, you know, it sounded like his voice, and I went with it. So again, think a little bit before you answer those phones. I don't even answer them anymore. I think yesterday I had 3 calls where my heart skipped a beat, thinking it's camp where my children are at. And I had to hope and pray that they leave a voicemail. Again, do not answer those phones, especially at night. The IRS, by the way, are never going to come and arrest you. How many of those calls have we all gotten, right? There's a warrant for your arrest. We know you're home, and I got Winter Park PD coming with me today at 4 o'clock unless you pay up. Well, first of all, Winter Park Police Department will probably tell you they will never work with the IRS. The IRS is federal, and they're local. So they have a lot of other things to do at Winter Park Police Department. Your holidays, your lower electrical bills, water softeners, another big one. They'll do whatever they can to get you on the phone, especially during the daytime, hoping you're lonely and bored and you will carry on a conversation. The typical phishing is, hey, Bill, how you doing today? And you're like, oh, my name is Bill. He kind of sounds like he knows me. Well, your neighbor, Bob, and then you think, oh, God, I do know my neighbor, Bob. Well, Bob just got a new roof on. Bill, you know what? We're going to come over. We're going to bring you Panera Bread. What's your favorite sandwich? We'll be there Thursday. How's 1 o'clock? But you know what? Before we show up, let me go ahead and run your credit. That way we can see how that roof's going to be, and maybe we could put a porch on depending on. And what do? Before you hang up, you're best friends with some guy on the phone, and you gave him your social. Thursday comes. There's no Panera. There's no doorbell ring. Bob's like, he doesn't know what you're talking about. That is your traditional typical phishing scam. Google your name when you get home. Google your address when you get home. Hit satellite image on your home. You will have driving directions and the view of your home, like that. So if you can do it, how hard is it for someone overseas or anywhere else to do that and manipulate you into feeling that they know who you are? Your friends, right? Be cautious, please. Another cautious. I'm just going to say, Christian Mingles has more than Christians on it. How's that? That's all I'm going to say. The online dating world has run rampant. We all know this. I've had everything from the grandchildren talking grandma into it to the widows, the best friends. We just want to go to the library with somebody. We want to go out and enjoy a nice meal. And now they're $280,000 in debt, and they've never met the love of their life. And I will tell you, I have 2 cases that are over $280,000, and they went nowhere. When I say cases, those are complaints to my office. They will never be investigated or prosecuted. More than likely, those individuals live overseas, and they are living large by those of us that are vulnerable on the other side. One individual from Point Siena actually boyfriend flew her all the way from MCO Airport to London, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. But his legal representative was, and they took her check that she had promised to help out with, and they put her back on a plane. Her sons were the ones that intervened and brought her to my office. Over $280,000. She could no longer afford her medications, and then strange things were happening, like Kirby, vacuum cleaner salesmen were coming around, people are knocking on her door. We call that you were put on a sucker list. Once you fall for one thing, they will sell you off to other bad guys. She could not get a wink of sleep because it was a constant thing. So be very cautious about some of these things where they are claiming to be the love of your life and they can't believe you haven't met at Publix, and they will name the Publix. Why? Because in your profile you've put where you're from, or you've put a zip code, and so now they're Googling the area and they're getting familiar with it. When they profess instant love or their photographs look fabulous and you try to get rid of them and a new one comes along, guess what? It's probably the same organized ring and they just changed the profile picture. They know that you fell for it once, they're going to continue. So be very cautious with any type of online dating or anything like that. Tech support, another one that's horrible. I get the calls and it doesn't matter how old you are. I've even oopsed before and clicked on something that was supposed to be antivirus and my computer went boop, 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 and it's spinning and it's freezing and it's locking. I've done it. It's not your fault. It's so hard to decipher between what's really truthful and what is fake out there. The tech support will simply probably call you. They will tell you that they're either with tech support with Apple, or they'll tell you, well, we've noticed your computer's slower. Well, what's happened is you've already downloaded the virus they wanted you to grab a hold of, and then they take over with remote control access. The one I got last month, the woman stayed on the phone with them for an hour and a half, and that was their purpose, because the more she's on the phone with them, they were pulling more money from her bank account. So her landline rang, bad guys on the cell phone, and the landline was the bank telling her, you've got over $280 coming out every couple minutes, what's going on? And then she said she knew it. The bank would not refund her because she fell for the scam. She willingly gave him the $29.99 startup fee, right, to fix her computer. So be very cautious with this. Over 838 complaints to the IC3. The IC3 is an Internet Crime Complaint Center. They're part of the FBI. Please contact them if you have any type of internet complaint. And they do not take phone calls. So unfortunately, I'm re-victimizing someone by telling you go back on your computer. But that is the only way that the Internet Crime Complaint Center will take complaints, is you have to go to ic3.gov, file a complaint for anything internet related. Again, this is how they continue, and this is what happened with my woman, the victim that called me and said, you know what? I was stuck on the phone for an hour and a half thinking that everything was okay, but I went ahead and took care of it, and I got a new credit card, and I said, no. You need to make sure that your computer is okay. She never thought about the computer actually having an active virus. So these are some things that you need to think about. Not only do they take control of your bank account, they can actually access the computer files, passwords, and your personal data that was on your computer. So if you don't know someone that can fix your computer and wipe it clean with an antivirus, take it to somewhere like Geek Squad or someone you can trust to wipe your computer clean of potential viruses on the device. IC3 looks like that. It's legitimate. Has the FBI badge on it, but it has a big red button on how to file a complaint. Credit freezes. How many of you here have a security credit freeze? Good for you. All of you should have one as of today, because I'm telling you right now, as of July 1st, we changed the law in Florida, and there is no longer a fee to have a credit freeze. A credit freeze is a PIN, and it locks your credit down. It doesn't expire. It doesn't affect your credit score, and it doesn't affect your current credit cards. So you can have 5 credit cards you use, but when you have a credit freeze placed on your credit history, it locks you from obtaining a line of credit. So if we have our social security numbers floating around, and you think someone's going to possibly get a loan in your name, they can't when you have a credit freeze, because it's a PIN number that only you are given by Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now, before July 1st, it was $10 per credit bureau, unless you were over the age of 65 or a victim. But now it's free. Because of the data breach that happened with the credit bureaus this past year, the governor pushed the House bill and it got passed, so we now have a new law. So the security freeze for Florida has been revamped, 0 charge to you. Placing a fraud alert is on the lighter side. Let's say you lost your wallet, you just have a bad feeling like with me and the gas station and my debit card. Had it been a credit card or something, I probably would have done a 90-day fraud alert. That is through an automated system to the credit bureaus. You put in your social, unfortunately, in a phone. You verify your identity, and they contact the other 2 credit bureaus with a 90-day fraud alert. Every 90 days, you can put it on your calendar and put another fraud alert if you'd like. You can also do a 7-year fraud alert. But again, the freeze does not expire. So the freeze is a lockdown with a PIN. This is just a red flag on your credit file. You can also do a 1-year active military credit fraud alert. Do not calls. You all know these don't work, right? They work as much as they possibly can. I had, like I said, 3 calls yesterday. The do not calls work the best they can. Register with the national and the Florida do not call. They no longer have a fee. Florida used to have a fee. But guess what? Spoofing is a new thing that is not going away. So along with robocalls that we get nonstop, you have spoofing. Spoofing is I dial a phone number, and it goes to your phone, and it says Bank of America pops up on your caller ID, either on your phone or on your TV or on your landline. I have just spoofed him into hopefully seeing that he answers that phone. So none of these are going to work because of the new technology that's out there called spoofing. If you don't know what it is, Google it, and you'll get hundreds of ways to spoof somebody. And it's all free, unfortunately. So yes, you can register for the do not calls, but keep in mind if you have legitimately donated to an organization, a not-for-profit, a fire department, they have a right to contact you up to 18 months since your last donation. So don't yell at them, even if you filed the do not call, because they still, if you donated, they have a right to call you. However, the spoofing you need to be cautious of, because they may say, hey, you donated to the Red Cross last year, thank you so much, and they may know exactly what you donated. How do you know that that's truly the Red Cross on the other end of the line? So be very cautious with your donations. I would say hand deliver a donation from now on. Opting out. Opting out of junk mail will help, but we still have people that drive by and pick up your mail. How many use the red little flag? Don't use your red flag anymore. The red flag is the hello to the bad guy that you have your checking account information sitting there while you just ran to the store. No more red flag on your mailbox. Take it to the post office, drop it in a big blue box. Do not do it. We have people in organized rings that are paid cash up front to just be the drive-by people to go hit mailboxes with the red flag because they know there's a checking account number in there and an account number to a bill, more than likely. Opting out will help with some of that junk mail that you get. It's not going to stop at all, but if you don't need credit card offers and transfer balances, go ahead and opt out of some of that. It will help with some of your mail. Lastly, our no scam hotline. You can call anything into our no scam. Typically during hurricane season, we get crazy amount of calls of the price gouging. So our office will switch gears and that no scam hotline will turn into the price gouging line. But no scam hotline, the 1-866-9 no scam, you can call anything into our office. I typically get all the identity theft throughout the state of Florida after someone has either had a response from our staff or someone's really mad. So the ones that are really mad come to me and I don't mind. That's part of my resources to calm them down and then help them work through it. Identity theft is a tough one because a lot of times people are embarrassed and they don't want to let anybody know that they fell for a scam, and I want them to know that they're safe and that they can talk to me. So if you know of any clubs or if you know of any businesses that may be interested in ID theft and a presentation, please come take a card. I don't mind. This is part of your taxpayer dollars. That's what I do. So if I'm not on the phones with victims, I'm out in the communities presenting. Any questions? Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
I'm Tom. Just recently, in the restaurant. Mike, okay. Just recently, he was in the restaurant, brand new type name. Don't know if it's owned by big companies or whatever and everything. Went up to pay. Here's my invoice, $23.89, something like that. Said, put your credit card in the slot. And I said, I'm standing there with money in my hand. I said, no, I'm gonna pay cash. We don't accept cash.
Interesting.
Interesting. And I said, but we only take credit cards. I said, I don't have a credit card.
Right.
You know, your problem. So finally the manager came over and said, we'll work it out. Is there laws, federal, state, or whatever about?
I don't know, but Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, as well as the No Scam Hotline, if it's not our office, which it's probably not, it's probably more geared toward Department of Agriculture, we'll route you to the correct number. That is definitely something that would cause some bells and whistles, I think, to go off, and you would want to report that for sure.
I know, I report it, but at the time it occurs, I mean, do what happened? That's money.
Right, no, I agree.
Okay.
But I think more geared towards Department of Agriculture, and they're the ones that deal with even from the scales being, you know, legitimately correct, the gas pumps, things of that nature.
I worked at banks for years. It is illegal to not accept cash.
There you go.
Yes, it is illegal. No, it's a
There you go.
federal law.
Federal, so there you go.
Cash is always acceptable.
Thank you. So yes, those are the things that they need to file complaints. Obviously not the police, but you call the Attorney General's office, they will get you to the right state agency as well.
One question and one comment. I'll do the comment first. I had occasion last week to file a complaint with the Do Not Call office on the Florida and on the national. In the Florida law, and I looked all the way through it, it says if you've ever done business with this company, they have the right to call you for the rest of your life. I mean, it doesn't say the rest of your life, but it gives nothing like the 18 months.
It should be 18 months.
That's-
That is the cutoff from what we've always been taught and what I've read even on the Federal Trade Commission's website. Now, Florida, I couldn't pull it, but I've always been told 18 months, they can still bug you. But after that, they are to take you off that list. So that's interesting. It's something I'll have to.
It's not on the website and it's not in the law that, you know, after 18 months you can do this. I went ahead and did it anyway, and so they'll find out. The other one was, what do you think about these companies that offer insurance, identity theft insurance? Are they worth it or not?
Well, I can always save face by saying I can't have a personal opinion working for an elected official, so that saves me. Do your homework. Do your homework. Make sure a lot of these have tier program from the lowest to maybe $50, $60 a month. Know what you're paying.